Hey, everybody. Welcome to the latest episode of The Rock Experience with Mike Brunn. On this episode, Vincent LaRusso and I are going to discuss the newest information about the KISS event in Vegas. We'll talk about the name change, the bands being added, the additional KISS show, and so much more. Lots to cover in this episode. I think you guys are going to really enjoy it. So let's jump in and let's get started. Hey, everybody. Welcome to the latest episode of The Rock Experience with Mike Brunn. Today, I'm excited to have back with me for the second time this week, but with the new background in hand, Mr. Vince LaRusso. How you doing,
Yeah,
buddy?
good. We got Paris. Was this supposed to be Paris over here?
Yeah, well,
I
that's
was
a
reaching.
hotel in Vegas the
I'm
Paris
trying to
Hotel.
reach for it. Like I'm like Godzilla.
Oh, yes, yes. You so seem like Godzilla.
Yeah.
Oh, man. Well, we wanted to jump on today and talk a little bit about the news about the KISS Vegas event. And I'm going to call it that for a moment because one of the things I guess that they announced today was a name change, which I'll say that a little bit surprised me. You went from KISS Army Storms Vegas to KISS Cruise Landlocked in Vegas. So let's just
Hmm.
start there. What did you think of the name change?
Say them both again so I could process that again.
KISS Army Storms Vegas was the original name, and now it's being called KISS Cruise Landlocked in Vegas.
Well, I think they're trying to capitalize on the momentum they had of all the cruises, and I think they probably should have initially started there. You
Yeah.
know, um, is that going to sway people more to go now that they're calling it that? Um, I think Kiss fans are savvy enough, and especially ones who've been on Kiss cruises, that they're going to investigate and look into it. And the casual people who've never been on the cruise, I don't know if it really matters much of the name change because they never experienced the cruise. So I don't know. I mean, I don't think there was a problem necessarily with the first name. I mean, when you say it, I'm
No.
like, oh my God, it just sounds,
Oh, I'll tell you
that
what I
much
think the
better.
problem was. I don't think there was a problem with the name at all. But I think in the last two, because I'll be honest, since any of the conversations I was in, which dates even prior to it being officially announced, it was always being discussed as like a Kiss Cruise on land. So to me,
Hmm.
the name makes sense. But I think the reason that they had to change it and why I like the name change is because once they announced Kiss Army Storms Vegas, there was a lot of confusion going on out there as to what exactly is this event. And part of that confusion, quite frankly, was because of an interview Gene gave, where Gene was like, well, it's the
Gene.
Kiss, it's always Gene's fault, right? Gene was like, well, the fans are coming together in Vegas and it's a fan event. And it made it sound like it was a Kiss fan thing as opposed to he was like, yeah, maybe we'll jump up on stage and just do a couple of songs. But
Yeah, that
Gene
was
made
bad.
yeah, Gene gave to me a horrible interview, which made it sound like it was a Kiss Army fan event. And for that reason, I like the name change because it really crystallizes what to me all the conversations were always behind the scenes. That was it's a Kiss cruise on land, basically. So I was very surprised by the name change, but I kind of like it just because I think it helps with marketing and make it clearer to the fans who maybe were confused over what Gene was talking about originally.
Hmm. Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
but in my mind, it's no different than what's been discussed for months on end. It's just a different name to maybe clarify some of that confusion, at least my
Yeah.
opinion. What do you think
Yeah.
of the what do you think of the artwork that they had?
I love the artwork. I
Yeah,
think
me
the
too.
artwork is awesome. I was going to comment on that next before you even so okay, great minds think alike. Yeah, no, the artwork. I'm looking at it I know it's in back of me, but I can see the full artwork from the email. You asked me about joining this or talking about it, and then I did actually get uh an email, kind
Okay.
of detailing. It looks like some of the additions, so which
Yeah.
I'm sure you're going to cover.
Of course we will in a moment, yes. But let's
Yes.
start with the artwork. So you're digging the artwork, huh?
Yeah, I think it's really, it definitely catches the eye. I love the colors and the way they put the Kiss members' logos on the ship at the front of the ship. I think they did a great job on that for sure.
Yeah.
Again, it's like maybe if some of these things initially happened, it would have, I don't know, if people are going to be more up the book because of a piece of logo, but it certainly gets you, I think, a little bit more excited about it when you certainly see. I mean, look, certainly art has a lot to do with. I mean, you know me in the '80s. How many albums did I buy because the artwork looked
That is
cool and I
true.
had no idea
That
about the artist?
is
So
great, great
it
point.
definitely does. Or even a book. When you go to buy a book, a lot of times, the artwork is going to
What's
catch
the
your eye.
saying?
And
Don't judge a book by its cover, right? Well,
right,
that's
right,
because of the artwork usually meant something, right? So
yes, mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
yeah. No, look, I agree. I think the artwork is phenomenal. To me, it just there's a lot of different things, like you were jokingly, kind of grabbing at the Eiffel Tower there before, but it's a couple of the different hotels in Vegas. I like that they incorporated the ship into it, even though clearly we're not on a ship. It's quote unquote landlocked, as they said. You got the sphere a little bit in the background, it looks like. Three crazy, crazy nights, right? So
mm,
they got that there. They still do have the Kiss Army Storms Vegas logo on there as well. So to me, it's really, I love the artwork. It's actually of all of the quote unquote cruises, it may be my favorite artwork I've ever seen them put out.
yeah. It's definitely a nice job.
I'm a big fan. But those things, the name change and the artwork,
Here
were,
we
I'm going to
go.
say, the minor things that they announced today, right? Let's talk about the event itself and some of the announcements from today and whether or not something like that you like or don't like. And I'm going to go actually, they actually released a schedule day by day as to not times, but just what's going to happen, which bands are performing on each day. So that's why I'm going to go through it. So they now say on Friday, November 14th, that there will be at least three concert performances. The first one, a new announcement, Kiss performing acoustic. So originally it was only going to be electric. Now you're getting two Kiss performances, one of them being acoustic. What are your thoughts on that, my friend?
Oh, a Kiss. Who's Kiss?
Well, it's still right now Paul, Gene, and Tommy. And, I was going to address that afterwards, but let me address that now since you're bringing it up, right? I believe in my heart of hearts at this point, Eric is out. I know so many people think that at some point they're going to announce Eric and he's going to be in. And I want to even clarify some confusion I've seen online. I've seen some people say, oh, there was a picture of Eric with some of the guys in Vegas before they announced this official. Of course, Eric's going to be there. He was at the event. Just to clarify for people, I wasn't at that dinner, but that dinner was not a pop house dinner. That was something that some of the fans did separately. Eric attended, Bruce attended, right? People saw the picture online. That was not a pop house event. That was a private event. Eric was not at the pop house thing that took place in March. So just to clarify that, because people, there's all these conspiracy theories. Eric was there, therefore he's going to be announced. They're just holding back. They're not. He was not there. I don't believe they're holding back. From the conversations I was in very early on, it was clear that it was going to be members of KISS at this, to the point that I even raised the question before it became public. I was like, is it all four of them? And they said, more to come on that. Right. So I believe Eric is not going to be there. And I think we're going to get an announcement on a drummer. I would guess sooner rather than later, but maybe not. Maybe it'll be a surprise when we show up. Does that damper any of this for you at all? That
Well, my question is, I mean, it's Gene and Paul. I guess they have the right to say whatever they want, or whoever's running the thing. But when you say a Kiss Unmasked show, I mean, last we know, Kiss is four members, and we know who the four members are.
Yep.
Okay, and at this point, Eric, now they can obviously do a show with another drummer, but is this pulling the wool over the fans' heads or whatever, or face, whatever? I just feel like this is still, um, I don't know. I just wish there would have been some sort of, like, maybe they don't want to acknowledge it. Maybe there's something bad. I don't know. We have
Mhm.
no idea. I wish even Eric would say something, or maybe he's not allowed to. There's just all this like mystery behind this whole Eric singer
Yes.
thing.
Yes, it is mystery.
I just wish I knew what the answer was. Look, I'm not losing any sleep
Right.
on it, but listen, Kiss was Kiss when, you know, Peter Criss and Ace Frehley were in the band, and it was Eric Carr and Vinnie Vincent,
Right.
or Eric Carr and Bruce Kulick,
Yep.
because it's Gene Simmons and Paul Stanley,
Yes.
right? So again, I, it's like, so I'm not saying that it's wrong to say a Kiss, because I see the email, it says a special second Kiss unmasked, and I think before, I don't know if they said a Kiss performance, they said members of Kiss.
Originally it said members of Kiss. Yes.
Members of Kiss. So now they're calling it a Kiss Unmasked acoustic kickoff,
Yep.
not a members of Kiss, which sounds so weird. You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? It's
Yep.
just bad. So, and again, if you have, three out of the four members, it's, and again, and especially if it'd be one thing if they said it's Kiss and they had, Gene Simmons, Eric Singer, Tommy
Tommy
Thayer,
Thayer and
and
somebody
and
else.
and Todd Kearns.
Right. Right.
That's not Kiss.
Right. With
That's
no
a Gene Simmons
disrespect to
band.
Todd Kearns. Right.
Right. That's a Gene Simmons band or
Yes.
whatever, right?
Yes. Well said.
So, right. So that's what I feel. I think it's still okay,
Yeah.
but I still would, just love to know what's going on with the Eric Singer thing, because it always seemed like he was, dare I say, like a good soldier for the band or whatever. It never
Yep.
seemed, I mean, look, and again, he played in Paul Stanley's, Soul Station. So I don't know what the issue is. And we don't even know that at this point.
No.
We have
No.
no idea,
Now they do
So,
say somewhere in all the different artwork that there's going to be a poster that they give out signed by Paul, Gene, and Tommy. So they do make it clear it's just the three of them. I'll say for me, I've accepted the fact that Eric Singer is not going to be there. I'm disappointed, but it's not a showstopper. I thought Eric was
no,
perfect for the band since 1991 when he joined. I know he was gone for a few years during the reunion, but he was the perfect drummer. But if they have somebody else in place for this Vegas weekend, that doesn't change
no,
anything for me at all.
no,
No
if
disrespect,
anything,
Eric.
if anything, it makes it more interesting to hear how the
Yeah,
drummer plays it. That's how I would watch it,
of course. Yeah.
I
Oh,
mean, what's
absolutely.
what's what's the infamous song? There's a couple of them. I remember you, yeah, you probably know right off the bat where Eric Singer put his little touches with the cymbal, or he did something that
Yeah.
I remember every time
Yeah.
you're
No,
like, I like when
I
he does
love
that.
the way Eric plays a War Machine. I think he plays it
Right,
phenomenal.
right.
But again, it's not going to change my opinion of the weekend. But the
Mm.
acoustic show being added, so now Kiss is performing twice. I personally thought that was a nice addition to today's announcement. I always loved on the cruises when they did the acoustic show. It was always like a fun way to kind of kick things off and get things started. I think when the year you went, it was like mid-cruise. Was it mid-cruise, the acoustic show? Or was it the beginning?
No, it was a sail away
It was
show.
the sail
I
away?
remember,
Okay.
yeah, I
All right.
specifically remember us sailing away, and
Okay. No, one or two
yeah.
years they did it not at the sail away. So I was just confusing what year you were there. But to me, it's like a perfect
I think
start.
that's the year that Styx performed "Come Sail Away," and you got
Oh,
confused
maybe
by
it
that.
was. Yeah, that
Yeah,
could
yeah,
have
yeah,
been
yeah,
that definitely could have been
yeah,
understandable confusion.
yeah,
So
yeah, yeah.
but not to me, it's an exciting addition to it. So now Kiss
Well,
is performing twice.
I think this is one of the things I might have brought up early on. I was thinking, like, remember how much it costs for a cruise, and
Yep.
remember you getting the indoor performance, you're getting, you were getting the acoustic show, and I felt like, the money is relative about the same, and you're
Yeah.
getting. I remember saying you're getting one less full performance,
You
and you were
did
getting
say
a
that.
performance, yeah, and you were getting a performance in makeup.
Yes.
Now at this point in my life, if I'm going to see Kiss, I don't necessarily have to see them in the makeup anymore. I just want to
Agreed.
hear the band, so the makeup thing, quite honestly, doesn't really, I don't need that anymore,
Agreed.
as a matter of
Agreed.
fact, I like it in a more intimate, more stripped down kind of look or whatever.
Same.
Paul Stanley's going to wear a leopard shirt or fucking hat or whatever the hell he's going to. And
Yes.
knowing Paul, he's going to come up with a new thing. He's never going to recycle anything. He'll probably wear
Right.
a hat.
Right.
He'll be like, he'll be going to George Lucas and get an Indiana Jones hat this time or something. You know what I mean?
Maybe so. Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. But no, so I think we both agree then. And I forgot you said that. That's spot on.
Yeah.
It was half the performance for the same price, and now you're getting the same amount of performances. So I think
I
we
mean,
both agree that's a nice addition.
and come on, man. At this point, the guys, it's not charity. I'm not saying that, but however, they're going to be there.
Right.
I mean, why would you not want to play again? Why would you not want to get together and do this? I mean,
Agreed.
I'm sure part of the man, you're doing this for 50 years. I'm sure with the, this is it, final tour, we're not touring anymore. They get the itch. And look, Gene has, he immediately pretty much went out on tour, right? I mean,
Absolutely.
so,
Yeah.
and Paul, we're not kind of sure what he's doing, but yeah, I mean, this, I'm sure they're going to be very excited about doing this again,
Oh, agreed.
you know?
Agreed. Now, the announcement that kind of jumped off at me because I remember when you and I were talking about potential support artists for this. I was saying, oh, I want there to be Kiss related bands, right? Even if it's just a band that
Mm.
opened for Kiss or whatever. And you were in agreement, and then you threw a curveball at me and you said, well, what if it was Stephen Piercy and Warren DeMartini? I was like, ooh, I never thought of that. I was like, that's a good one. And
Somebody listened to me.
lo and behold, somebody must have been listening and said, ooh, Vincent had a good idea, right? So
Yeah.
when I
Don't
saw
pretend
that,
don't pretend you're not bringing this back to Pop House, all my ideas.
that's right, exactly. Now everybody knows I'm just the face for it,
Mhm.
but it's all Vincent's ideas being fit to Pop
As
House. But
I am the chemist. I do
that
develop
is
the
right.
ideas. Yeah.
That is right. That is right. So, to me, that I'd actually go to see Stephen Piercy and Warren DeMartini if they were near my house. So for me, seeing that that was an addition, that was to me a nice, solid addition to this cruise. I have to imagine, since you were the one that proposed the idea, right? I have to imagine that you would agree with that.
Yeah, I think I remember even saying, maybe even like, a Dokken or we were talking about
Yes.
levels of we weren't expecting, we said this in Motley Crue or
No,
Def
of course
Leppard,
not.
that was going
Mhm.
to happen. But of the Piercy and Mark DiMartini or Dokken or whomever of those type of bands, even a White Lion or something like that would have
Mhm.
been certainly for me an exciting draw,
Right.
and I'm not necessarily a huge Rat,
Right. No,
fan,
me
but
neither.
certainly I know enough of their catalog, and certainly I had those records, and I'd be excited to see them, and I actually heard them live more recently, and I thought, no, listen, Stephen Pierce isn't the he's not like a Don Dokken back in the
Hmm.
day. He had a very kind of distinct sounding voice, and he
Yes.
kind of still sounded the same from what I heard. So
Okay. Hmm.
it sounded good when I heard them recently,
Hmm.
because I
Right.
was curious.
Right.
Um,
Yeah,
so
look, I think when we were talking, we said we realized it wasn't going to be another quote unquote A-level band, like you said, a Def Leppard or a Motley Crue or something. That's not what this is about. And we spoke about that you needed to add a B-level artist. And I feel like they did by bringing in Stephen Pearcy and Warren DeMartini. I know it's not called Rat, but for all intents and purposes, it's the heart and soul of Rat.
it is, and quite honestly, you're probably going to go to the next thing. You got Quiet Riot. Now we all
Right.
know at this point it's really just Rudy, as you called him back in the day, Starzo,
Starzo.
right? And right, it's just Rudy Starzo as
Hmm.
an original member. Unfortunately, because of passing of Kevin DeBrow and what's the drummer's name again? Help me
Frankie
out here,
Banali. Frankie Banali.
Frank Banali.
Hmm.
Yeah. But then again, it's kind of weird when you see a band like that because it's a singer you probably have no attachment to, whatever.
Yeah.
But you are still hearing, their, bang your head, come on, feel the noise, whatever else they had was
Slick
mental
Black
health. Was that
Cadillac.
something like
That's,
that? Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. And although you won't hear, come on, feel the noise.
No, you
No,
won't. If you
one of
don't
your
know what he's
favorites.
referring to, just refer
Yeah.
back to that US Festival show, the US Festival of
Was it U.S.
'83.
Festival or Us Festival?
I think it's the US Festival.
Yeah, is it?
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
I
think
was
it's the
always
US
saying.
Festival. Yeah.
But I mean, okay, so this is a kind of another, B-level band,
Yeah.
I think it's a nice addition.
Yeah, and
I'm just
I would say
wondering
Quiet Right's more of a C, maybe even with all the replacement players, a D level band, my opinion.
because of the replacement players,
Yes. Yeah. Of course.
because it's you can't argue that "Come on, Feel the Noise,"
Oh, of course. Oh, they had
catapulted this whole ever, and it was a number one song,
oh,
right? So,
absolutely. If this
right,
is if this is the original lineup, I'm with you on it being a B level band.
yeah,
Unfortunately, it can't be. It's not that
right.
it's not like there's
It
arguments.
can't be.
It
It
can't be.
can't be.
I see what you did there.
Where's
So,
Carlos Cavazo these days? I mean, he's still alive.
at one
I
point he
know
was
that.
playing with Rat. I know he's not
That's
now.
right.
That would have been
But
funny
I
if he
know
was there and he played with both Rat and Quiet Riot. But
I know Quiet Riot, I think, has had the same guitar player for many years because I
yes.
remember if people haven't seen the Frankie Banali Quiet Riot documentary,
Hmm.
where they're trying to find a singer to replace Kevin DeBrow, and you basically you see even at that time that Frankie, and this is before he got sick, was still like upset with Kevin, and the whole thing,
Right.
and but it's a great documentary of them
Yep.
trying to find a singer and whatever. I highly recommend watching that.
Absolutely. Yeah. No. Absolutely. So I think to me the Friday usually starts midday anyway. So having those three artists, to me, that's a solid day. If each of them are playing, let's say an hour and a half, that's what, 4.5 hours of live entertainment mixed in with whatever else is going on during the day. I think that's a fairly solid first day, in my
So
opinion.
wait a second, it's Kiss Unmasked, Piercy DiMartini, and what's the other one?
And Quiet Riot, all on that first
Oh,
day.
Quite Right. Oh, the Quite Right. Oh, I didn't
Yeah,
know that.
yeah.
Okay,
All,
yeah.
all three of them are performing on the Friday. So I wish that there was, and maybe there will be some kind of like cover band or something like that also mixed in, where if you just want to go kind of like relax a little bit, yeah, but maybe they'll announce that at some point. But in terms of name artists on the Friday, I'm
Hmm,
good with those three: Quiet Riot, Rat, or Piercy DiMartini, and the
hmm.
Kiss Acoustic.
So
It's
weird. So weird when you got these, they can't be, well, it's obviously because there's two versions of these things now,
right.
but, I don't
Yep.
know.
Yeah,
Piercy
I
DiMartini is like,
sometimes wonder with bands today when they get started if they put stuff in their contracts that say who owns the rights to the name going forward or whatever.
no.
I don't think people thought about that in the 60s and 70s, but you'd be crazy if you were starting a band today and you're not thinking of that.
But now the Rat that's called Rat, isn't that Bobby Blotzer's in that one?
I don't even know. I have no idea.
Because I mean, if the okay, so it was DiMartini and what's his name who passed, right? Who was the other guitar player?
Yeah. Yeah. Oh God, now his name is escaping me. Boy, this is
It's
embarrassing
not
to
Chris
both of
Holmes,
us.
that's
No,
Wasp.
that's Wasp.
Yeah. Oh my God. Anyways, so who's Rat?
Robin Crosby.
Robin Crosby, right?
Boy, man, that
Yeah,
was senior
yeah,
moment, senior moment.
yeah, exactly. Um, but yeah, I thought it was Bobby Blotzer, which is ironic because he's the drummer. I mean, not
Yeah.
um,
No disrespect to Bobby, but he didn't write the songs. He wasn't singing the songs. He's an odd person to potentially own the name, but I think there's been lawsuits about that.
yeah. Now they toured under, well, in 2015, they toured under the Bobby Blotzer's Rat Experience. And
Not
then
to be
October
confused with the rock
2015,
and roll experience with Mike Brown.
yeah, no.
Totally different experience.
So it says in October 2020, 2015, DeMartini sued Blotzer for falsely advertising his tribute as the real thing. In November 2015, DeMartini's attempt to procure an injunction to prevent Blotzer from using and touring under the Rat trademark was overruled,
Overruled.
allowing Blotzer to tour using the same name Rat. So isn't it weird? Why don't they call like DeMartini Piercy's Rat? Why are they
Yeah,
not using that Rat name? It's just so weird, especially
yeah.
that, listen, everyone's going to associate Rat with
Stephen Pearcy,
Stephen Pierce,
of
right?
course.
So I don't know. It's just weird.
It is definitely weird, but again, I'll say I'm happy with the schedule for the Friday with those three artists. So let's move to the Saturday then, if you want.
SATURDAY.
Yeah, they're
Dang.
not playing.
Damn. I wish they were.
Yeah,
Then I'd go.
then you'd go, yeah, right. So largely what's going on Saturday was already announced, although it wasn't announced it would be Saturday. So Kiss is doing their electric show on Saturday. So they're doing back-to-back shows. So, like you said, and I was going to ask you about what your thoughts were with the non-makeup. You've obviously made that clear. The one thing that concerns me about this show now, I wasn't concerned until today. Now I'm a little scared.
Scared, man.
I don't know if you saw the quick little video that Paul and Jay
No,
did.
I just saw that and I did see it, but what happens? Tell me.
So it's short. It says not a whole lot other than, hey, come join us in Vegas. But there was just one phrase that Paul used, and he's
Here
speaking
we
off the
go.
top of his head, but it just gets me scared when it comes to this electric show. He said it's going to be him, Gene, Tommy, quote, playing all the songs you want to hear. D.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
don't want that. I don't want
yeah.
all the songs you want to hear, unless he's talking about the diehard fans. There's no clarity on what he means by that.
Well,
But knowing Paul, I get a little scared with that comment.
be more scared with that comment if they weren't doing the acoustic show, I would say. I think they're going to keep the electric show more to the traditional songs like they did on the Never Ending tour, the Never Ending, what was it called? The End of the
And
Road
the,
tour.
the
And,
never
and,
ending
and
road.
right. And the acoustic show, I think they probably will do more of the obscure stuff because that would be a total waste if they did the same exact
Oh, no,
songs
no,
with the acoustic,
no, they're not
right,
going to do the
right.
same songs on both. But if I'm being honest, the acoustic show set list started to become a little stale. You
Yeah.
knew you were going to get Coming Home and Plasticaster and Going Blind. All great songs, acoustic, right? And I'll be thoroughly thrilled on November 14th when they're doing those songs. But I kind of know what I'm going to expect from that. And if
Yeah.
the Electric
Yeah.
Show, I'm getting Shout Out Loud and Detroit Rock City and Rock and Roll All Night and Love Gun. All of a sudden, I have one word, boo. In fact, I have three
Mm.
words, boo, boo, boo. So
Yeah. Yeah.
now again, maybe I'm reading into that comment. I hope I am. I know when I was in Vegas and Tommy was there, he did talk about playing the deep cuts for the fans, and Tommy's clearly involved. And if there's anybody in the world I trust for this to get it right, it's Tommy. But hearing Paul say those words got me a little scared. I'm like, man, this better not be a standard Electric Show just in, no makeup instead of
Mm.
makeup. Time will tell.
Right.
But that if Paul didn't say that, I would have been like, all right, we're getting an acoustic show, an electric show with deep cuts. Hopefully, this is going to be glorious. And yes, I expect them to play some of the standards. They always did on the cruise also. But you've got to mix in the Paul, if you're watching this, and I know you are, right? Paul, you always watch my show. Thank you so much. But
Right before dinner.
that's right. He's like, I was on that guy Mike Brun's show once. I'm going to always watch his podcast. But if he's ever getting this wind of this, please, for the love of God, 5, 6, 7, 8 deep cuts, please, not a standard set list. Please, I'm begging.
Yeah.
We'll see. We'll see. Rounding out that day is Sebastian Bach, which they had already announced, and Quarantine. Quarantine being Chris Jericho, the wrestler's band, who does a bunch of 80s Kiss cover songs. Cool concept. I'll check it out. If I'm being honest, I wish there was another name band with no disrespect to Quarantine, but the Kiss Electric Show, Sebastian Bach, a full day in Vegas. I'm looking for at least a third artist on that day.
I agree. I still feel like this, and just looking at everything, it's a nice addition with the Quiet Riot and Rat, but I feel like they still need one other, B-list band, in my
Yeah.
opinion.
Yep. For the Saturday. I feel like they
Yeah.
needed that. And I say for the Saturday because on the Sunday there's Black and Blue and Tommy Thayer is going to perform with them. And Bruce, I wish Bruce was doing two sets. There's been absolutely no conversation at all that I'm aware of Bruce doing two sets. I wish he was. But also the Sunday usually wraps up, the last day wraps up a little bit earlier. All right, there's only two artists. Maybe I wish there was a third also, maybe there will be. But that was my takeaway from this is that hey, great additions of Stephen Piercy, great addition of Quiet Riot, great addition of the extra Kiss acoustic show. I'm just looking for one more band, one more name band for Saturday and one more name band for Sunday. Again, B, C level. I don't expect it to be a Motley Crue type band, but that
Mm.
would be my
Mm.
opinion.
I agree.
So
I agree.
now I know that they've also said in the past, they've kind of clarified it that there's going to be a Q&A with Doc, Q&A with Kiss. They announced, I think today for the first time that Bob Ezrin was going to be there. So to
Hmm.
me, when I saw that, I'm like, you probably, of all the things we discussed, Bob Ezrin Q&A would probably be one of your highlights of the weekend.
Yeah, that'd be fun.
Yeah,
That'll be just as long as they're not the standard same old fucking questions that I've heard
right.
1,000 times.
Right. Well, to me, the nice thing will be since this is a Kiss event, you have to think he's going to really 90% of his conversation be focused on working with Kiss.
Oh,
And
of
I'm hoping
course.
they talk about not just Destroyer. I'm hoping they talk about the Elds. I'm hoping they talk about Revenge. So it'd be
Hmm.
nice to kind of I'd love to get like 20 minutes on each of those albums. If he's up there for
Yeah,
an hour, give me 20 minutes on Destroyer, 20 on the Elder, 20 on Revenge. That would be perfect to me.
I
Lynn
agree with you.
Lynn Goldsmith, who's a photographer in the 70s into the early 80s. That'll be interesting if she shares some of the backstory of some of the photos that she took in that time period. Then there's going to be additional, they said, artist panels. I'm assuming that means Stephen Piercy, Warren D. Martini, etc., Sebastian Bach. Um, Artist meet and greets. That was always a thing that they did on the cruise. They also said they're going to be sharing the future of Kiss. Now it's not going to be me at the bagel store being my future. It's going to be the future of Kiss.
Right.
So I think that'll be something that will pique the interest of fans who are there. I'd have to imagine a lot of people going there. And then, as they always did on the cruise, there's the karaoke, there's the trivia, there's a lookalike contest, photos with the merch, with the memorabilia. Of course, people will buy merch. Um, so it really gives it more of a cruise feeling to me. I just think they still need one or two more artists added to the bill.
Hmm. I agree.
But overall, today's announcements, do you see it as a positive, a negative, a net neutral? What is your overall opinion?
Well, I think they, as they have done in the past, they incrementally have added things, and I think this was absolutely needed.
Yes.
I would love to see how, the ticket sales go from this point forward if you do see a spike in ticket
Hmm.
sales. But yeah, I think I everything you said, I think it's definitely a positive step. I don't see anything negative in this at all. But I do feel like one more band would be great. Maybe you said two, be
Yep.
level bands, trying to be realistic.
Yep.
I think that would make it, well worth the money.
Agreed. And I'm glad
Well
that
worth the money.
right. I think that you just said something that's important. On the cruises, they were always announcing things in phases, right? So I know that there's
Hmm
some people that are already saying, well, they're reacting because it wasn't selling, blah, blah, blah. This is the MO of the way they did the cruises all the time.
hmm
In fact, I went
hmm
back, I still have all my old emails. Extreme was not announced on the cruise that they were on, and they were the second biggest band besides behind Kiss. Extreme was not announced until August of that year. Meanwhile, the
hmm
cruise was sold out, right? So
Yeah.
this is and it's a lot of same people that are involved in this, were involved in the cruises, or some of the same, not a lot, some of the same people. This is the business model that they know. So this is
hmm
not just necessarily a reaction to, oh, tickets are selling, they're not selling. This is just the way they've done business. And quite frankly, going back a few months ago, it's the way they told us that they were going to be announcing
hmm
this. It wasn't going to be all
hmm
at once. So even if this thing sold out on day one, I think the announcements wouldn't have been till now anyway. So
Yeah.
to me, this is business as usual. I do hope there is still another band or two that gets announced. And I'm hoping they have one or two different types of cover bands, 70s band or an 80s band. To me, that stuff was always fun just to help fill in some time while you're just relaxing, hanging out by the pool, whatever it is. But yeah, I agree with you. To me, there's nothing that was announced today in my opinion, that could be viewed as a negative. It's all positive. I'll still be curious about the drummer. I think that's what's front and center on most people's mind right now, and we'll see where it goes from here. But I think today was a positive
Yeah.
announcement.
And plus, you get one more opportunity to get that poster signed with Craig Gass's, and you get to if you can if you'll buy his DVD this time.
Oh, that's right. What Vin's referring to is what was it, the Indie Expo in
Yeah.
2018? I printed out this poster with all the different artists that were going to be in Indie, and there was a lot of artists there that weekend. And I got every single artist to sign it, except Chris Gass would not sign it unless I purchased what was like a phone message recording for $50 or something like that. And I'm like, no, I'm not doing that. So
I,
so on my
I
poster,
just
that's the
remember
one
your
signature
reaction.
missing. Yeah.
I just remember your reaction when he said that. You went to me and went, "Dang."
Exactly. And look, no disrespect. And I happen to think he's very funny. So I'm actually glad he's
hmm
going to be there. Um, I think he's really, and he does a lot of good Kiss jokes and all that. So that's another good addition. I'm glad you brought him up. But I remember
hmm
that weekend not paying a penny to have Todd Howard, John Regan, some others sign
Yeah.
it. And then Greg Cass wanted me to pay $50 for the recording just so he could be the last signature on my poster. And I'm like, nah, I'm good. So that
Yeah.
poster still to this day is minus one signature. So,
Well, as
and
I
you know
said,
what? I like it
bring the
that way.
post.
No, I like it that way. It's actually a good story now.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
if I got the signature on it, then we wouldn't be able to talk about this. But
That's true.
anything else that you could think of for the Vegas event?
No, I think, like I said, it's a step in the positive direction, and I probably expect one, as you probably do, maybe one more update
That's
at this
that's
point.
what and I don't know that. So please, people
Mm.
don't read into, hey, Mike's working with Pop House. He knows. I don't know that there's going to be another announcement, but I suspect that there'll be even just to fill in the blanks, give you times of things like that. Again, I'm basing this off of what I saw on the cruises in the past. So
hmm
that's my
hmm
opinion. But of course, this is my opinion, your opinion. I like to hear what other people have to say. What are your thoughts? What do you think of the additions today? Do you think that these were good additions? Are you looking for more the way I am, or do you like having the free time if you're going and being able to explore some of Vegas, etc.? We look forward to seeing, reading, hearing your comments. As always, all opinions are welcome, as long as you're respectful. That's all I ask.
So we ask, we don't ask
That's
for
it.
much.
So I'm not exactly. I'm not asking for a
This,
whole lot here.
there's no Venmo tip jar here. It's not like we're asking for money or
Well,
anything.
no, if
Come
people
on.
want to send me money through Venmo, you're welcome
Yeah,
to.
sure.
But
And I have my
otherwise,
own thing. I have
oh yeah,
Venmo. It's
you're
different. It's
Venmo,
just
it's
Venmo just goes
Venmo.
all to me.
But no, all we're asking for is just some politeness. That is it.
Yeah.
So, all right. Well, on that note, Bloody, thank you for joining on such short notice. Appreciate it as always. To everybody
No
for
problem.
watching, thank you as always. Till next time.
Oh yeah, I'm doing the piece. Oh yeah.
Well, all right. Alrighty, there you have it. Let us know what you think about these newest additions and newest announcements for the Kiss Vegas event. Does it get you more excited for the event? Is it indifferent to you? What do you think? All opinions are welcome, and as always, there's no right or wrong answers. If you're watching this on YouTube, hit that subscribe button below. If you're listening to one of my podcasts, subscribe over there as well. Also, head on over to Facebook and follow my page, The Rock Experience with Mike Brunn, where each and every day we talk about all the rock and roll music that you love. You could also follow me on Instagram and Twitter as well. That's it for this episode. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. See you all next time.